we really love, we go to the people that make it and say, how would you make it better? We did that with Has-to-Grow. We really like the Has-to-Grow fertilizer, so we went to Stuart Frankie and said, if you were going to do this over, how would you do it better? And he said, well, I'd add more seaweed, more humates. And we said, well, do it then and put it in a bottle. We just call it Natural Solutions Liquid. All that is Has-to-Grow with stuff added to it. Rose Glow by Meister Grow was the best fertilizer we'd ever found for blooming plants. So we went to Gary DeMasters and invented Rose Glow and said, Gary, how could we make it better? And he said, oh, well, you could add such and such and such to it. I don't even know what he told us. So anyway, we told him, okay, start making that improved form, put it in a bag, and we'll put our name on it that says Color Essentials. That's basically the same thing we've done now with the Medina granular fertilizer, and it will be enhanced even more in the future. It's just taking a good product and making it even better. Yes?
On the pruning, you said it should be done around Valentine's. Would it hurt anything if you do it now? You didn't do it then.
The problem is if when you prune late, the plants have already put on a lot of growth. Now this year not as much as usual because it's been so cool. But the plant has X amount of energy to come back out and start putting on its spring growth. When you let it come out, then cut it back, and it has to start all over again putting on new growth, then you've weakened the plant, because you've in effect thrown away all the energy you put into making that early growth. If you need to do it, do it. But maybe put a little extra fertilizer on. If the plant were weak or sickly, I would not, because you might end up killing it if the plant was not healthy to begin with. But if it's a healthy plant to begin with, what you've done is just delayed flowering a little bit and caused the plant to use up more nutrition than it really planned to put on its spring growth. Yes, ma'am?
The gardener told me to cut them on January the 1st, rain or whatever. Always cut them down on January 1st. Is that too early?
Well, the problem is that any plant, when it first puts on its new growth in the spring, it takes that growth a while to harden off. And I might use boxwood for an example. Boxwood is a shrub that will go to 0 degrees without damage if it's got moisture. But that new tender, beautiful light green foliage that it comes out, if it goes to 25 degrees, it burns and just, it totally dies back. So it takes new growth on a plant a little while to harden off to where it'll take the toll better. If you prune your roses on the 1st of January, we get a little bit of warm weather and it puts out lots of beautiful new foliage, and then we get a hard freeze, it's going to be just like the rose that you cut back and forced to put on growth. It's going to freeze back, and that's going to set the plant back. When we prune around February 14th, we figure it's going to take 2 to 3 weeks for that new growth to really start coming out, and 2 to 3 weeks after February 14th, most years will be beyond the danger of a hard freeze. So you prune early if you want, but you do run the risk of freeze damage if we have a year when we have really cold weather in late January and February. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Can I ask about compost?
Okay.
Heavy duty caca. Can you throw it in with the mix when I'm making rose beds? I'm enlarging what I've already got. I'm aiming for more sun, so I'm enlarging and I'm going to make this bed grow.
The question is, when you have really, really, really rich compost, can you mix it with the soil when you're going to plant roses? If you have good finished compost, yes. If you have really rich, very fresh compost, no. And the reason is this, that the top of a plant is what we think of a plant as being. It's taking in carbon dioxide and it's giving off oxygen. I mean, that's what sustains life on Earth. But the root system of a plant is totally different. The root system of a plant has no chlorophyll. It has no green. It cannot carry on photosynthesis. From the soil down, the metabolism of a plant is just like our metabolism. We take in oxygen and we give off carbon dioxide. So a plant's root system has to have plenty of oxygen in order for it to survive. That's why when the soil stays too wet, plants die. Water didn't kill them, but the water drove all the oxygen out of the soil, and the lack of oxygen is what killed them. When you put unfinished compost, really hot compost as you call it, it's generating a tremendous amount of carbon dioxide. You put that in the soil, you've replaced a lot of the oxygen with carbon dioxide, and the rose is not going to do very well. Neither would anything else. You know, if you're planting grass, you don't put the compost down and put the grass on top of it. You put the grass down and then put the compost up on top where it wants to be absorbing the carbon dioxide. So, long answer to a short question, if you have really well-rotted, well-finished compost, work as much of it into the soil as you want. But if you've got compost that's still steaming, no, keep it only on the surface. But you understand why.
I do.
Okay.
It's the heat.
Can I ask you?
Well, it's the carbon dioxide.
Okay.
But the heat is telling you that it's still decomposing and producing lots of carbon dioxide.
So work it in.
About compost,
Uh-huh.
I had someone helping me and had some cheap compost. It was supposed to go in a part of the yard where there's, nothing hardly. And he put it in some of the rose beds.
Uh-huh.
Now, should he have left space between the compost and the...
Yes, but if he didn't, it's not going to cause a whole lot of problems.
And then I put the fertilizer on top.
In an ideal world, you put the fertilizer on first and the compost. But it's not that important. You're fine putting the fertilizer on top. But all fertilizers basically have to be digested by microbial activity so that the plants get the benefit from them. When you put your fertilizer on the ground, then you put your compost on top, you're putting all these microbes right on top of the fertilizer, which is going to make it available to the plants a whole lot sooner. Put your fertilizer on top of the compost, yeah, the plants get the benefit, but it just takes a little bit longer.
See, I blinked one day, and it was done.
Yep.
So.
Well, I promise you that every yardman out there thinks that he knows more than you do.
Absolutely.
It's just a given fact, and well, I don't want to tell you all the things that I've seen over the years, but they're kind of like husbands. They always know a lot more. One of my girlfriends asked me if I knew why men didn't get mad cow disease. Hey, men are pigs. Anyway, no, it would have been better had he not piled the compost up on the trunks, but being there for a few days or a few weeks isn't going to hurt
At least
anything.
it was organic.
Yeah, at least it was organic. Take your hose and just wash it off. It's no big deal.
Does manure hurt roses?
It depends on the type of manure.
Horse
And,
manure. How about horse manure?
Okay, in terms of what are the highest nitrogen manures, and it's nitrogen that burns if you have too much of it. Cow manure, I mean, it can come fresh out of the cow and it doesn't have enough stuff in there to burn at all. Horse manure goes through a horse much more quickly, and it can both have weed seeds in it, and it could potentially be hot enough to burn, but it ages very rapidly.
Would you use it on in your vegetable garden?
I wouldn't for a couple of reasons, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. But then when you get into some of the poultry manures, fresh chicken manure is really potent stuff. Fresh bat manure, guano, is even more potent. So with those things, you could burn with that, but cow manure you're never ever going to burn with. The big danger we face with manures, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but so many hay producers now are spraying their hay crops with a type of weed killer that doesn't go away. It's called picloram. And it's sold under names like Grazon and P+D. Goes right through the cow or the horse, comes out in the manure, and everywhere you put the manure, it kills everything except the grass. We put some on one of Roberta's flower beds one time, my business partners, not realizing that the neighbor where we picked it up had used a bunch of this stuff, and it was 3 years before she could really grow anything in that flower bed again. Picloram's bad news.
The grass?
Oh, no, the grass would be fine. Picloram is an herbicide that kills everything except grass. So, and if you have, somebody gives you a bunch of manure and you want to know if it's safe to put on flowers and things, what you do is put a bunch of it in a bucket, fill it with water and soak it for 2 or 3 days, and then go take that water and find a dandelion or henbit or some broadleaf weed, go pour some of that water on there. If the weed shrivels and dies, you know you've still got weed killer in the manure. If the weed continues to grow and thrive, then you know it's probably safe to put on your plants. Yes, ma'am.
2 questions. Your ladybug compost, is it high in nitrogen?
It's fully matured. No, it is well broken down. It's safe to use anywhere on anything, and it's perfectly safe to mix into the soil.
What kind of compost?
Ladybug is the brand.
Oh, Ladybug.
Yeah, what they actually make 3 different composts. The ones we like best is one they call Revitalizer.
How do you feel about that? Cotton?
Cottonburr compost? Let me answer her other question, then I'll get to that, because that's a good question. Yes.
The other was, she was talking about if she puts her fertilizer on. How often do you do?
If you really want to get the most for your roses, do it about every 2 months.
What about that garden bill living mulch? Is that okay? Does it have that herbicide?
You will get 3 questions ahead. We'll come back to that in just 1 second. Did that get both of your questions?
Yes, it did. Thank you very much.
And your question?
I was wondering if you were going to discuss the fragrance of the roses at any point.
We can come back to that.
Okay.